Blake, I'm adding you into the stream.
Um, Good evening, fellas. How are we?
Hello,
We're
Blake.
very
How
well.
you doing?
Yep. Okay, so I will start off with what you guys were talking about quite a bit earlier on the Orthodox Church. So I found all that very interesting, what's happened over there, and in particular, you guys were talking about globalism, which I will get back to in relation to the Orthodox Church. But one fact I found very interesting with the whole the meddling by the US foreign policy establishment in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church was a comment by Metropolitan Hilarion, who's the head of the Russia's external, what are they called? Their external relations. He's like their foreign minister. He was saying that a lot of the animosity between the Russian Orthodox Church and the Constantinople Patriarchy goes back to an ecumenical council that they ended up boycotting because I believe the Catholic Church were involved. The Catholic Church were involved in that. Is that correct? Are you guys aware about that?
I think what you may be referring to is something that happened back in the 1920s when the Patriarch of Constantinople decided to adopt the Western calendar. And the Russian Orthodox Church is extremely unhappy about that because that calendar was perceived by the Russian Orthodox Church as Catholic because it was originally promoted by Pope Gregory, I think it was a 16th century Pope. So he felt that he had not been consulted, and this created a tension between the two patriarchs at that time. Carry on.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. Now, what the one I'm talking about, it was a ecumenical council between it's between all the Orthodox churches in the world that they have, and the last one was 2016. I believe the Russians boycotted it, and maybe another church boycotted it. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. And apparently Hilarion claimed that is when the current Patriarch of Constantinople started to really get very agitated against the Russian Orthodox Church because they boycotted on the grounds that Rome was going to be in effect attending it because I think they were there under observer status or something like that.
Yeah, you're right, Blake. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Let's go on. Go on. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. Is that sorry? All good.
You're good.
What I found interesting about that is to me that's interesting that that's the point where he started to turn because of the history with Rome's involvement in meddling in the Ukrainian church in the past as well. So I did find that interesting. Do you think there's any validity? Because there's been some claims that the Catholic Church has actually been a bit involved in this whole thing with the US foreign policy as well. Do you guys think there's any validity to any of those claims?
Alexander, can you address the fact that there is a strong, I don't want to say very strong, but a strong Greek Catholic church in Ukraine? Alexander.
Absolutely, there is. This is in Western Ukraine, in the area around Lvov. It was created, I'm not quite sure when, but I think it was the 16th century or 17th century. Now, what it does is that it accepts the leadership of the Pope, and it's Catholic, but it uses Orthodox rites, and it's so-called the Uniate Church. And of course, many Orthodox see this as a sort of Trojan horse that was created by the Catholic Church, by the Vatican, to try to draw Orthodox people away from orthodoxy towards the Catholic Church by performing similar ceremonies and rituals, but doing so with a Catholic content. So this has always been a major tension. And I should say that the Uniate Church in the West, in this area of Western Ukraine, which is the part of Ukraine which is most hostile to Russia, it is one of the carriers, if you like, one of the major carriers of hostility to Russia within Western Ukraine also. So these are the sort of factors that are in play there.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Thanks for that. Yeah, I did. So from what you guys are saying, yeah, I from my point of view, I can see that is a factor, and that it kind of, does this also feed into Russian animosity as well when it comes to, because I know like in the Orthodox world there's a bit of an accusation that, you know, that the Catholic Church has always been a center of like policy against the East, so to speak, ever since Constantinople. I don't know if that's a bit of a historical conspiracy theory. You know, when it comes to the Fourth Crusade and things like this, there's claims that the Church was behind that, as an example, with Venice and everything as well. But I don't know. But I do find that sort of talk, when I do read the Orthodox side of things, and actually some Russian translated websites, I do find that very interesting.
Well, there is
to look at it from that angle.
There is a very strong anti-Catholic tradition within Orthodoxy, going way back into the Middle Ages, and I don't think you find it so much in Greece, but of course in Russia it's also been very strong. I mean, Dostoevsky, the Russian writer, was very hostile to the Catholic Church, and of course he wrote that famous passage in the Brothers Karamazov, which is the legend of the Grand Inquisitor, when Jesus returns to Seville during the time of the Spanish Inquisition. And the Grand Inquisitor, who represents the Church, the Catholic Church, tells him that the Catholic Church is serving Satan, and tells him to go away because, you know, they don't want him again. And so, I mean, there is an anti-Catholic tradition within Russian Orthodoxy. And by the way, if you're interested in Russian opera, if you see Mussorgsky's opera, Boris Godunov, that's present there also. So there are these elements. I don't know how strong they are today, actually. I think perhaps more in Russia than in certainly in Greece. But I mean, in Russia, there is an element of this, and you know that the Catholic Church has played a role in Russian affairs and Orthodox affairs, which has not been particularly positive. So I don't know how strong it is or how widespread it is, but I mean, there is that tradition there, certainly.
Okay, fair. So, no, that's very well. That's very interesting. On the, you guys made a comment earlier about the globalism and how a lot of the globalists are very anti-Christianity, which I do find interesting as well, an anti-religion per se. Although recently I would say I do find it interesting, since the current Pope's gone woke, that a lot of the, let's say a lot of the anti-Catholic was in a lot of the mainstream Hollywood stuff as well, especially conservative Catholics. But now that this woke, well, whatever you want to call it, new Pope is the way it's being portrayed, it's not like that anymore. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, it's, I mean, as I'm not Catholic, I'm not really perhaps the best person to discuss internal Catholic things, but I know a lot of Catholics are very unhappy about some of the directions that the new Pope Francis is actually taking, and that this is an issue that, you know, a lot of Catholics feel that he's deviating, or at least he's moving away from accepted Catholic doctrine, and he's doing so in a way that compromises the message of the Catholic Church with ideas that are fashionable in places like the United States. Now, as I said, I must admit, I don't follow this very closely. I know a lot of people are interested in Francis, Pope Francis. I am less so than some, but I mean, I know that this view does get expressed. If you're talking about the Russian Orthodox Church, it is extremely conservative and very traditional and emphatically not woke. So in that respect, that's perhaps one reason why some people in the United States dislike it so much.
Okay.
Just to go off of that, Blake, because I'm also in the live in the chat as well, and I wanted to also say the same thing that Second Horizon is saying. In the chat, he says Benedict was ushered out for his theology. I don't know if you guys saw the movie The Two Popes.
No, I haven't seen it
by any chance either. But
no, I haven't.
There is that. A lot of people do like to discuss Benedict and Francis and that transition, which is an interesting story, and I think there's a lot to be said about what happened during that transition. Anyway, there no doubt Francis is extremely polarizing. No doubt about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I just do find the history with, like, especially now that there's a political element as well with the meddling of the the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. It's also interesting to look at the historical meddling that's been going on in that church as well, and that it was primarily Catholic driven. So, but now it's taken on a different flair, I suppose. But yeah, there was just one more question. What are your on the Catholic Church stuff now? I know, was there? I've also heard a bit before that there was a bit of church involvement in EuroMaidan. Is there any validity to any of that, or?
Yeah.
Yep.
There is. I mean, there is absolutely. I mean, bear in mind, a lot of the people who were involved in EuroMaidan, that's the protests in Maidan Square in 2013, 2014, which led eventually to the unconstitutional change of power with the fall of President Yanukovych. A lot of these people came from Western Ukraine, and they are uniates who are loyal to the Catholic Church and to the Pope, and they are hostile to Russia and to the Orthodox Church. And there is no doubt at all that some members of the Vatican hierarchy were supporting them. So unquestionably that played a role, and it's still playing a role in affairs in Ukraine to this day. I mean, the schism that's taken place within the Orthodox Church in Ukraine is partly influenced by pressures from the Catholic Church, or at least the Uniate Catholic Church also. So yes, to answer your question, absolutely. I don't know whether you want to add anything to that, Alex.
No, there was definitely influence. Without a doubt, I think the most influence came from outside of the Obama administration. Definitely came from the NGOs and the Soros types. That's where I would point most of the influence. I mean, those NGOs are just toxic.
Absolutely,
including many of the universities, these foreign universities that operate in the country, and they get a lot of this stuff going.
Yes, absolutely. So, no question about it.
What is it true that the new so the Unionate Church actually didn't that get merged into this new church that Constantinople created as well?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, that new church is supposed to be the true Orthodox Church of Ukraine, though it's by far, I mean, it's still very much the minority amongst Orthodox believers in Ukraine, but it is distinct from the Uniate Church. But I'm sure it has good links with the Uniate Church, which, as I said, is anti-Russian, basically.
Yep. Oh, that's fair. Oh, thanks for that, guys. I'll let you move on.
Thank you, Blake.
No worries. Care. You too.